you said 7 years ago, you saw the writing on the wall with the academic wave, the reemergence of the digital, like Dr. Oz, right? Like Huberman is Oz, right?
Yeah.
Or if we all agree that Rogan is Oprah, the Huberman is Oz. Like and it's, you know, sunshine up my balls. Like, fuck, I don't got time, man. Like, I got to work. What's the next 7 years look like? The prophet, you are the oracle now. You are all knowing and all seeing. Well, what do you think? What do you see in the next 7 years? Health, fitness, longevity space. What does this look like? What's coming?
Well, someone commented on one of my YouTube videos many years ago. It's been like 4 or 5 years ago. Because I'm on YouTube a lot. I'm on a lot of podcasts. I'm talking to a lot of people, and they said, Stan just repeats himself. And you could look at that as an insult. I kind of looked at it as a compliment, because I'm not making shit up. I'm focused on the things that actually work, and I just repeat those things over and over and over again. You know, everybody kind of knows what works. It's not like obese people don't know that hyperpalatable, ultra-processed fast foods or, an overconsumption of calories is causing them to be overweight. But I said, are you doing it? Now, you know all of these things. Are you doing it? Are you getting your 7+ hours of sleep? Are you exercising regularly? You know, all of these things. Are you eating healthy? Are you getting a blood test to see how your genetic predisposition is to how you respond to, your diet, etc. So I think the information is there. I think even the popular people are evolving. You just mentioned Huberman. Huberman's made a lot of extraordinary claims. Unfortunately, a lot of it is majoring in the minors. But that's what people want. That's what I wanted throughout my whole career. I was searching around for the magic. I was turning every rock. I went and met up with Flex Wheeler finally after all these many years of following him since the early 90s. In 2008, I sat down with him at Gold's Gym in Venice with my yellow pad of paper and my pencil, and finally the Wizard of Oz was going to pull back the curtain, and I was going to get to see exactly how to become a pro bodybuilder. Flex talked and asked questions, and about an hour and a half later, I looked down and I had nothing written on my paper. Flex hadn't told me anything I didn't already know, anything I don't think the general public doesn't already know, anything an athlete doesn't already know. He just emphasized the things that he was going to have me do that mattered most, and to make sure that we did them just religiously, from sleeping to eating to training, and just the big rocks. So I don't think I have anything extraordinary to tell people about that, and I don't think after looking at everything that's going out there that anybody has anything new. Huberman's evolved. Dr. Peter Attia is another one who has evolved over the years, believe it or not. These are people who 5, 6, 7 years ago, believed in keto independent of a calorie deficit. They believed in intermittent fasting independent of a calorie deficit for its health benefits, right? Independent of weight loss and a calorie deficit. These are folks who were, especially like Dr. Peter Attia, who was a keto, intermittent fasting, and he's obsessive. So I had to watch this for 3 years or 4 years of him peeing on keto sticks and showing everybody his keto numbers. But what happens, and with Huberman as well, Huberman is great with mechanisms. Who's another one? Dr. Rhonda Patrick, great with biochemistry, great with mechanisms of action, but they all make the same mistake. They make these giant logical leaps into outcomes, into claims and percentage, 300% increase in this, that, and the other. Rhonda Patrick famously on Joe Rogan had said that fasting would increase your growth hormone so then you could build muscle.
Shut up. She did not say that.
She did say that. And a lot of these people still make that claim. I was talking about how chrononutrition and how eating breakfast was probably a better option for people who chose to intermittent fast. It's not my recommendation, but my recommendation is, what's the best diet, the one you'll follow. And if keto or intermittent fasting, and I'm trying to shit on those diets in so much as it allows the individual to adhere to the diet and makes it seem the least restrictive, such that they can maintain a calorie deficit and experience the weight loss. Again, the weight loss being the primary importance. Long-term adherence, of course, is critical to that as well. But back to my point, without shitting on diets or shitting on Huberman or Rhonda Patrick, these are all very smart people. Peter Attia, he's talking about a Stanford MD and a Johns Hopkins oncologist. He used to believe in the carbohydrate insulin model of obesity. That's Jason Fung. That's who else was
Does it bother
good
you
calories
that these are
or
strong
bad calories?
opinions so weakly held?
Well, again, outside of their domain-specific knowledge, they're not nutritionists. There were journalists writing these books, not nutritionists writing these books. What was Gary Taubes, smart guy, very academically qualified, not a nutritionist, writing a book about keto with. Fortunately, we now have redpenreviews.org, where we have there's a host of PhDs in nutrition that go through and they look at all the references. Gary Taubes' book is excellently referenced, but the references don't say the claims he made in the book, and that's why when an organization like Red Pen Reviews goes through and looks at the references to see and whether or not that reference represents the body of evidence. I said many years ago in one of my rants, I said that there's peer-reviewed published research to support any side of an argument. And that is true, but that doesn't necessarily make them equivocal, because we have a hierarchy of evidence. And we know some of that research is animal research or Petri dish studies. And some of that research is randomized controlled trials. Some of it's epidemiology. Some of it is a systematic reviews, a meta-analyses of all the body of literature. And then that, as we get up the pyramid to the very top, we see position stands by professionals, academically qualified professionals who have reviewed the body of research and put forth a consensus. And so, we have this hierarchy of evidence, but most people are down here with anecdotes, testimonials, appeals to authority, and then, of course, the mouse studies. But what has happened, and I'm bringing this all around, I wasn't trying to shit on Dr. Peter Attia, or Huberman. They have made some extraordinary claims on outcomes that just aren't proven in humans. And I, as a bodybuilder and a powerlifter, I'm only interested in outcomes. So I'm on the other end of that spectrum. And if I try it and it doesn't make me stronger or increase my performance in some measurable, immediate sense, then I've moved on. And so, and if it's made me weaker, I even have a slide today, things that make you weak. There's a host of things that people have utilized over the years that actually cause a decline in performance. So the silver lining, what you mentioned 7 years ago when I saw Lane Norton, and I anticipated that I didn't want to be on Fuckery Friday. Even Joe Rogan, by having these experts on their show, eventually they have started to have people like Lane Norton, Dr. Andy Galpin, and others on their show explaining the science to them, and it's caused them to question what they used to believe, and they have started to evolve. And I see that in some of their more recent podcasts over the last year or so. They still get into the sunbathing your balls and the ice baths as though it's something meaningful. It's not. It's majoring in the minors, and there are time constraints and cost constraints to be considered, and what do we call that? When you're trying to choose, you only have time to choose one of two options, and you want to the cost-benefit analysis on anything. There's only so many hours in a day, and I listened to some influencer the other day said he got up at like 4 o'clock in the morning and he had like 17 little wristlets on or something. I don't know if you recognize the guy, but he had this whole thing that he would do every morning. He got up and I can't even explain it, but I'm like, Jesus Christ, that's complicated. If I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, it's to pee and go back to bed. It's not to engage in all of these particular, minor of little things that move the needle very little. I focus on the big rocks over and over and over again. So I have seen an evolution. I like it when I see some of these, not just academically qualified professionals, but academically qualified professionals who are also competing, who lift weights, compete in bodybuilding or powerlifting or some sport, and understand the application of their academia into outcome, human outcome and performance. And so there has been an evolution. Now, the original question was, what do I see in the next 7 years? I see a lot of the same, which is frustrating because, again, it's 1% information, 99% execution. But what I see is that I spend the vast majority of my time dispelling myths, trying to get people back on track from, I call it the shiny object syndrome, and it happens amongst professional athletes as well. many of them doing things that some of them are successful in spite of themselves, to be honest. And if it's not hurting them necessarily, I leave it in the placebo category. I'm like, if that's your routine and that's what you enjoy, I'll leave it alone unless I can recognize that it's actually physically harming them or potentially impeding their performance, in which case I'll intervene and try and educate them as to the research. If it compromises their ability to spend more time and energy into something that gives them a greater return on their investment, such as a training protocol, etc., then I'll suggest we do the better of the two options. That's always going to be the case with social media. We're always going to have people that are going to be making extraordinary claims and trying to financially benefit off of it. But I think where the future should head is kind of where some of, like Alan Flanagan in particular, and is talking a lot about the real. And this conversation always ends up with a lot of hand-wringing by people and comments. But if it's about the general population, the 70% of the population, and weight loss, we're back to the source or the cause of the obesity epidemic and the increased rates of disease is overconsumption of calories, period. We're just eating more than we used to eat and more than some other societies that don't have the same obesity problem. And those calories are largely coming from these ultra-processed, hyper-palatable foods. That is, because I said in a video many years ago on the obesity epidemic, because everybody's trying to play pin the tail of the donkey and find if you want to start a war, you need to find an enemy. And unfortunately, in the war on obesity, you're at war with yourself. The enemy is also the victim. The source of the problem is also the only solution. So it might not be your fault, but it's your responsibility.